Good afternoon, good folks, and welcome to the City Commission of the City of Muskegon special meeting for this Wednesday, August 2nd at 1 p.m. or 1:05, as we got a little bit of a delay. But may we have roll call, please?
Mayor Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Hood?
Here.
Commissioner Ramsey?
Here.
Vice Mayor Adjournment?
Here.
Commissioner Gorman?
Here.
Commissioner Emery?
Here.
Commissioner St. Clair?
Here.
Thank you. So we are here today for a review of our local community ARPA grant program. The City of Muskegon Commission had committed $1.6 million of our ARPA funds that we've received for a community grant program, and I'm going to let our city manager and Pete Wills report out on the process of how this got started, where this money came from, how we got here, what the commission did establish a committee to review this. No members of the commission were on that committee. We selected one citizen from each ward across our city, as well as 2 members of our staff. And then we also sought guidance and counseling and support from 2 organizations in our community who are well versed in this area of grant writing and grant support and community building. So I'm going to call on our city manager, Jonathan Seifert, to report out.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So as he mentioned, we did have a committee that reviewed the applications. The application process, I guess I'll back up a little bit, opened up in, was it March? Yeah, opened up in March, and those were due in April. And then we did go through and look at getting community members from across the city from the 4 wards. So we had in Ward 1, Lawrence Baker. Ward 2 was Leon Howard. Ward 3 was Jen Sanaki. Ward 4 was Nina Lask. And then myself and Sharonda Carson were from the staff. And I believe we've got Nina and Jen and Sharonda in the room, kind of hiding back over there. So we do have a number of the committee members in here who went through this process. The committee process, we met 4 times as a group. And then those 4 meetings were several hours each, so I'd probably say between 8 and 10 hours of committee discussion where we reviewed the applications, or we had discussions about the applications. We reviewed the applications on our own time outside of the committee structure. The structure that the committee put into place was based on our own feelings and with advice from the United Way and the Community Foundation on the best way to proceed forward. So the process that we went through was a process that the committee came up with. Initially, we started talking about each application one by one. I think we went through 2 and decided that was not going to be very productive. And so we decided to take the individual rating sheets and go home on our own time and go through and review all of those applications. We then took those total scores, they were loaded into an Excel document, and we averaged out the scores between the 6 of us. I do want to note that if there were any conflicts, we did not rate any organizations that applied to where there was a conflict. I'll use myself as an example. There was a commissioner who was involved with one of the applications. I did not rate that one. And then my father's a member of the Silversides board. I did not rate that one. So that's just my personal example for you guys to understand kind of the process that we went through. On our 4th meeting, we went through the applications that we had received and the ratings, and we looked for a break point in the ratings. And so the break point in the ratings was the first large drop in the average score, and we went and looked above that level to see what we could fund, with the objective is funding as many of those above that level as possible, which is how we came to the recommendation of Pete. I believe it's 22 projects to be funded. We had a lot of really great applications. We had a lot of really great discussion. Every application was reviewed by the committee. Not everyone was fully rated by the committee, but every application was reviewed by the committee. If there were applications that were on the bubble and 2 or 3 committee members wanted that reviewed. We pulled those forward and rated those as a committee. So everything was rated. I'll turn it over to, well, actually, I want to see, Todd, did you want to say anything about our process as one of our advisors, or from the community foundation? Yep, from the community foundation perspective.
Hi, Todd Jacobs from the Community Foundation, also 1762 Jefferson.
Okay.
I just have appreciated the opportunity to be part of the process, and was just really impressed with the level of care that the committee members took in reviewing all of the grants that were under consideration. The tough thing with grant making and allocating funds is there's always more demand than there is resource that's available. And so as the committee looked carefully at those organizations or institutions that were impacted by COVID, this potential impact on the community, I thought they put a tremendous amount of due care and had some very strong conversation. And so I would just like to commend the committee members and the council and the city leadership for being open to having a process such as this. But taking on that many grant applications is a tall tale, and I've seen it many times in my work experience, and I thought it was really handled very well. And unfortunately, there will be folks that will be saddened because they may not have received funding or a level of funding that they'd wanted. But these recommendations, I think, are to be celebrated because I think they can help move the community forward in a very positive way. Thank you for the opportunity, Jonathan.
Yep. Thanks, Todd. And I do want to say that the advice that we got from both the Community Foundation and the United Way was invaluable. Christine, are you here? I didn't see you, but okay, good. We wouldn't have been able to have probably as a robust a process without their advice. And having, being in entities that do this on a much more regular basis than we do, obviously, it wasn't starting from square one. So I did want to give any of the other committee members who spent many, many, many hours volunteering to have an opportunity to speak up as well, if any of you would like. Nina.
Hello. Great. Nina Leask. I represent Ward 4 and just mayor, commissioners, city members, and visitors. I would just like to share a few aspects of the committee. We didn't know each other when we came on board, so there was no behind the scenes deals or anything because we didn't know each other. And we really had really honest and clear discussions. They were open to the public. We did have some public people showing up, and the process was, as we said, we kind of developed a little bit along the way, certainly with the guidance of the Community Foundation and United Way, but they didn't in no way force us in a direction. It was all discussion and guidance. All 60 of these, we did read, we did review, we did discuss, and it was tough. It's because there's a lot of need out there, a lot of good. And I think one thing that we kept grounding ourselves from the commission was going back and looking at, this is about COVID money. This is the money that the federal government gave, and we know that the city has a responsibility to report back, and if the money is not used properly, there's repercussions. And that was something that we kept drawing ourselves back to, is saying, this is about COVID money, this is the time, and what is best for the breadth of the community. So thank you for didn't know what we were volunteering for, the number of hours, but everyone really did take it seriously, and it was a tough decision, but we feel good about where we're at. Thank you.
And Jen or Sharonda? No. Okay. Cool. Okay. So.
You want to get up? Do you have anything to add? No? Okay.
Okay. Cool. So from more of a technical standpoint, I'll turn it over to. Sorry.
I was just pointing to folks in the back. There's a couple seats in the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
To Director Pete Wills, who kind of shepherded this process forward and was staff to the committee. as was Director Deborah Sweet from our communications and engagement office. She was integral in this as well. So. It's on. So wireless 1 is on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for coming out at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. So thank you very much. But Pete Wills from the City of Muskegon, Director of Government Relations, and I appreciate everybody's patience through this process. And we thought it could be a little bit quicker in this process, but this particular type of one-time grant funding and how we use these dollars is not done every day by the city. Certainly, we have a lot of granting programs, so appreciate your deference and patience in this process. Did want to cover a couple of things, certainly that the mayor and the manager and our review committee members covered specifically, but just more for the edification of the public, is we have the cover sheet that's up available online. As the review committee, we're looking at the questions in the application that were then used to determine the eligibility of each and ranking of the application. I just wanted to re-emphasize the questions that were used in our scoring. Of the 10 that were initially listed in the application, the first one is the project eligible under ARPA. That was excluded because nearly all of them are, but the remaining 9 were really the ones that were used for the review committee to rate. So was the description, the project description and budget clear and well defined? Did it include a capital expenditure? Was there a description of structure and objectives? Certainly, were there expected outcomes for residents who are disproportionately impacted within the community? Is the project scope reasonable, or is the response reasonable and proportional to a public health or negative economic impact of COVID? Can the project be completed within the ARPA timeline? Have there been previous partnerships that the project entity had been dealing with, and are the project applications aligned with our commission's long-term goals? So what you can see on the larger document that's up online, it's about a 100-page PDF. The first few pages of that document includes a Excel a screenshot of the 22 that the commission or the committee rated, and the reason why I emphasize the questions that were used to rate is based on how the percentage of project funded, and so I don't know if Ann or somebody, maybe we can get that document up online or up available. Maybe Deborah can. But of the 22, 12 proposals were recommended to receive the full amount of the project request. I would say that there was not a hard and fast process. We really just subtracted from 1.6 million based on the request amounts were in the application. We were very conscious of the sustainability of the project, and whether there were other fund sources within the information that were provided in the application, so that if someone requested 100,000 and the committee recommended 25,000, we just really wanted to ensure that the project could be completed, but we did not want to short that applicant dollars. But we tried to do the best we could based on the information we received. Could that entity complete the project if they received half of the funding or a quarter of it? So I know that was maybe a question that was lingering out there of why some projects received 100% of the request as opposed to certainly less than that. So that was a process. We try to be straightforward with the program guidelines of what we were expecting. I would say nearly all of the proposals submitted some semblance of narrative and documents to give us an idea of at least what was being proposed. Some were more clear than others, and so those that were not or below this rated line is not a reflection on what you believe to be a clear explanation of your project. They're all valid and worthy endeavors, and as Todd said, we're just really dealing with the limited dollars that we did have available to us. So it's really within the definition of how complete and how clear these proposals are, so that we're not in your space each day to know exactly how you intend to use them. We're just doing the best job we can based on what had been given to us. So a little bit of grace or deference on that is, and how we kind of came up with that process is always appreciated. But just again, reiterate what's in the cover sheet. We had 4 neighborhood associations. Let me back up. Of the 22 project proposals, the committee is encouraging recommendations to support 4 neighborhood association projects, 5 that were small businesses, and 13 that were nonprofit organizations. Fortunately, we had 12 projects that are either women and minority-owned business organization proposals. 8 proposals would fund be for the direct benefit of our community youth. 3 proposals that would provide funds to expand access to new housing options for our area residents. And as I said, 12 were recommended to receive the full amount of their request. As part of the process, we did ask our city treasurer to conduct a preliminary review on any outstanding city taxes or city accounts. So we did provide some of that. Were provided some of that information, so there were no outliers or no egregious violations of anything. There's a few that do have some outstanding payments, but it's nominal. So that was a process that we did use. Upon approval by the commission, we would be expecting the applicants to enter into what's called, according to the federal government, a beneficiary agreement. These would be for activities and programs for the benefit of the community. You're not acting on our behalf. You're not providing a service, but it is certainly a benefit. And so as we would be entering into that arrangement for the distribution of these dollars, and according to the program guidelines, we would distribute 50% of those awarded funds to you, but based on terms that would be stated in the beneficiary agreement that we would work with you prior to distributing those funds. So we would be very consistent from beneficiary to beneficiary agreement, but we just want to ensure that we don't give you half of your requests and half of your dollars, and we don't see if in the next decade. We are responsible for those dollars if they aren't used in the ways that we are accountable to the federal government. So although those dollars could be clawed back, if we're not able to call those back from the applicant, the city would be responsible ultimately, if audited by the federal government, for those dollars. So anywhere from $25,000 to $250,000 these are serious dollars, and that's why we really do want to be intentional and how we award these dollars for the benefit of you all.
Just want to add one thing to what Director Wills was talking about regarding the neighborhood associations, because if you'll notice the break point that I was talking about, 2 of the neighborhood associations were below that. However, because the commission tweaked some of the criteria specifically for the neighborhood associations, as a group, we thought it was important to look at those and find ways to help facilitate the neighborhood association's objectives, which is why those 2 neighborhood associations who were below that line were recommended for funding.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Director Wills. And many thanks to the members of the committee, our citizens that were involved in that committee, as well as Director Carson and our city manager for participating in that grant review process. It was more than you all bargained for, I'm sure. You all had 4 different meetings and spent many hours reviewing these grants and doing that diligence, and that is incredibly appreciated. And thank you to our staff, particularly Director Wills, as well as our community engagement manager, Sweet, for establishing this process and shepherding it going forward. It was very important to the City Commission that we did create a small or local grant program to make it available and allow interested parties in our community to have an opportunity to access and use those dollars. And so I'm glad that we did this process. And we were, as the Mr. Manager just indicated, we were very intentional in ensuring that all of our neighborhood associations had an opportunity to apply and to pursue these dollars, regardless of whether they have a technical 503C status or not. We wanted to make sure all of our neighborhood associations had an opportunity to apply. Not all of them did, some did. And so I'm so incredibly grateful for the work that has been done. Thank you to the Community Foundation, and thank you to the United Way for helping us in this process and providing some guidance. And hopefully those applicants that are not getting the full amount, or those applicants that are not necessarily going to be funded, we don't know yet. We're going to be discussing this and deciding who's going to get what. I think in strong deference to the committee, I'm for one giving very, very strong deference. I would think it would have to be a very, very compelling reason to differ, in my opinion, from our committee's recommendations. But I hope perhaps, as the Community Foundation has had an opportunity to be part of this process, that if there are applicants who are not being funded fully, or there are applicants not getting any funding, perhaps you might be able to connect them with additional opportunities to pursue resources that may be available through the Community Foundation, the United Way, or other funding sources in our community. I think that was part of the value, at least I saw, of including those two very important organizations in this process. So thank you again. Commissioners, before we go on to discussing and reviewing the recommendations in these grant applications, do you have any questions for staff on the process that has been undertaken thus far itself? Okay. Legal counsel.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, one of the programs that's being recommended, one of the programs that's being recommended today, Commissioner Gorman was an employee of them at the time of the application. Commissioner Gorman and I have talked. She has a conflict, so she will not be addressing when you consider Pioneer Resources. I am not aware of any other conflict, but if you do, that you're on their board, you are intimately involved in it somehow, please let us know. Much like with Ms. Gorman, there is a process for waiving the conflicts, but we need to know about it so that we can work through that process.
Thank you very much. That's good context. So Commissioner Gorman has identified a conflict, one that had existed at the time of application, one that may technically not exist today because she's no longer in the employ of Pioneer Resources, but that conflict had existed at the time of the application and the grant review. So in the declaration of that conflict, we'll need to perhaps consider that allocation if the commission decides to allocate that money separate from the totality of any others, and at which time it requires the unanimous approval of the commission for it to proceed.
Well, it will need some written disclosure that will have to occur before the award, and it'll need to be run past Department of Treasury. And so again, it will be subject to other things, and it would require a 2/3 vote of the 6 of them.
2/3. Okay. I knew it was more than a simple majority. It's 2/3. Okay. And so that may be, if we, that may be held up even longer then to go through the Department of Treasury and whatnot before it comes to the commission for approval. Okay. So it's just something to keep in mind. Vice Mayor German, I saw you.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. As City Manager Cipher stated before, there was some conflict with two applicants, and as a City Commission Vice Mayor, my organization, we did submit an proposal, so I want to be transparent. At the time, we was not aware because it was not stated in the guidelines. So I just like to make that public and to let them know because it was a youth program dealing with education. So given the fact that consulting with legal counsel, he did brief me on the conflict and the reason why. So I just wanted to be transparent about that and as open as possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German.
Yep.
All right. So, Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to review the applicants and the applications, as well as the recommendations that have been brought forward from the Grant Review Committee. And Dr. Wills did a very nice job in providing that synopsis of all of the applications and the background. Do you have any questions with regard to the recommendations that we've received? Any questions or thoughts you wish to share on? Commissioner St. Clair.
Are we speaking to specific grant requests at this point?
Speaking to
Or
the,
generalities?
um,
Or are we talking generalities still? Are we getting into the meat?
starting to get into the meat, but if you have generalities, we'd welcome them as well. But yeah, I mean, what after having reviewed these recommendations and what we received, what are your thoughts on them? I mean, we understand the process. We understand who's been involved in that process. None of us have. We didn't even receive these applications at the same time that the committee received them. We were very intentional about leaving ourselves out of the process to depoliticize it. And so now we've had this committee give considerable, careful attention to this to bring those recommendations forward to us. And it's our time to decide: do we confirm and concur with these recommendations? And if we do not concur with these recommendations, which ones in particular do we not concur with, and what is the compelling reason for us to not concur and perhaps consider redirecting funding elsewhere into another one, and for what reasons? Vice Mayor Chairman.
Does
Commissioner
Commissioner St. Clair want to continue? Okay, yeah. First of all, I'd like to say thank each and every one of the nonprofit organizations and groups for applying for this opportunity. This is something that I suggested due to the impact that it had on residents and citizens here in the city of Muskegon. I just felt that it was not enough dollars available. That's why I proposed also to add additional $500,000. But that was not voted in that favor. But given the fact that due to the beginning stages of where we did generously give funding to organizations, and one that I see particularly on here is the Boys and Girls Club that we gave $1 million to. And I have a issue with that because that takes away from the other opportunities for groups that are just starting up. And the initial intent for my suggestion for this ARPA grant funding for organizations, startup businesses that's really trying to get their business off the ground, up and running on their nonprofits, and they've been doing the work in the community for quite some time, but not had the resources to do this with. And I just really have a conflict right now with the $250,000 proposal with the Boys and Girls Club, but I'm thinking the recommendation was $50,000. And I just think that $50,000 could be used elsewhere for another nonprofit organization that's really trying to get their business or their organization up and running. So,
Thanks for sharing your perspective, Vice Mayor German.
yes.
Director Wills, or perhaps this is a better question for our city manager, who was part of the committee and the discussion. As my understanding is that this was a point of question and conversation, discussion amongst the members of the committee, and they kind of struggled with the same thought and concern as the vice mayor, and as I'm sure others on this commission feel. So could you perhaps give some insights into that consideration by the committee and why they settled on recommending $50,000 allocation for the Boys and Girls Club of the Muskegon Lakeshore?
Yeah. So we did have probably a pretty lengthy discussion, one of the more lengthy discussions about this particular application, because there was that concern as well, or that thought as well. And what we came down to was there were a couple major factors in this. Some of the expenses at the remodel as it relates to the pool was not part of their original capital campaign. And because of the folks in the community that the Boys and Girls Club serves and the need to have that type of a resource from an educational standpoint, we thought that it was worth funding at least a portion of it because of that. So it was one of the things that we discussed a bit longer than the other ones because of that. Yes.
Is there any members of the committee that maybe want to add further context to your thought process? Any other members of the committee? No? Okay. I'm not going to be calling you every time, but so don't worry. But I just wanted to get better understanding and context as to that conversation and the deliberation.
Yeah, one more to do too. Well, I had one more on that, but if someone else wants to go ahead.
Does anyone else?
Address
Commissioner St. Clair?
regarding the Boys and Girls Club request. I probably, like the whole commission, had the same thoughts. We already gave them $1 million. But in reading the proposal of what they were actually asking for, helped change my perspective somewhat on that, because they are asking specifically for the swimming pool that has not been a funded project. And because of our location and that we are surrounded by water, we're on a peninsula, on a peninsula, on a peninsula. And so many of the youth that the Boys and Girls Clubs serve do not know how to swim. And not only is it a great disservice to our community to have people who aren't able to enjoy our waterfront because it's not safe for them, but that is their primary focus of this grant request. So that did help shift my thinking a little. I would want it to be absolutely crystal clear, if we do move forward, that this is specifically for the pool only. And if they decide not to renovate the pool, that we would not fund it.
Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair. Commissioner Hood?
Question. Muskegon Public School System, they don't have pools in their schools anymore? Because at one time the middle schools all had pools, and
Just the high school has a pool.
Just the high school now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think it itself needs. And we don't have anyone from Muskegon Public Schools here to answer this, but I think that pool itself needs some upgrades and investments.
In that case, then I would agree that it should be specific just to the pool, and if they decide not to do it, then we should not have to. We should get the money back.
Thank you, Commissioner Hood. Commissioner Ramsey, do you have anything to add or ask on this topic?
No.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gorman or Commissioner Emery, anything to ask or add on this particular topic?
I concur.
Okay, yes, thank you. I would concur with that sentiment as well, of committing the $50,000 as recommended, but with the caveat that it's meant for the pool. I think that is important, not only for the Boys and Girls Club, but for the fitness center and our community at large. And so I wholeheartedly support that additional funding. Thank you. Follow-up, Commissioner or Vice Mayor German?
Yeah, and then I would like to go to the next one. And I hear what my fellow commissioners are saying, and it's been some discussion of topic of discussion with that concern. Again, giving $1 million to an organization and a generous donation with no hesitation, and all of us voted in favor of that. I just felt that $50,000 can be raised elsewhere. There's other resources out there, but again, being impacted in these organizations that's actually applying for this funding, I think we were very generous in our contributions of what we gave to the Boys and Girls Club, and I cannot support that because we did our due diligence, and that's definitely needed, but at this juncture, I just cannot support that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German. Your next item
Well,
you wanted to raise, or anyone else want to? I'll give everyone else an opportunity to raise the topic
if anyone else
first.
wants to go ahead, I stand still for a second.
I think we've settled the Boys and Girls Club allocation. Is there any others that wish to be raised at this time? Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have necessarily an issue with any single organization that the committee has chosen to award money to. Thank you so much for the committee. This is not easy work. I'm glad that you all got to experience it and to understand that funding, as Todd and Christine both know, is a very difficult process, and there is never enough to go around. So thank you for that work. The concern that I have, Mr. Mayor, and it was we sort of set precedent with it just now with Commissioner St. Clair's eloquent discussion around the $50,000 for the Boys and Girls Club. I think that for any of these agencies that are not being funded at 50% or above of their request, we need to ensure that our release of funding is going to make an impact and that it's going to be sustainable. Some of these numbers are pretty low for me. And if we're looking at the 50,000, I'm just going to use this as an example. I'm not saying that we need to, but as the precedent sets, if we're talking about 50,000 to Boys and Girls Club, if they're not able to complete that project, then those funds are not released. I want to know that we're going to look at all those others that are funded at less than a 50% marker line as well, to make sure that we're not causing any financial risk for those agencies, right? Because what is the saying? More money, more problems. And while I absolutely understand that everybody needs money to survive, it is a thing that happens in this community. You can tell I've never seen a room this full in my 4 years. It never felt so important in my life. Well, thank you guys for showing up. But really the question that I have is, are we creating a financial risk for some of these smaller organizations that we're not funding at least a 75% rate? And how do we make sure that moving forward, we are helping to protect them from giving them money? Here, Jen, here's $50. Jen spends that money with the intent to do all of these things, but she's $5 short. Well, then Jen, give me back my $50. That's not how we make an impact for our collaborative partners or our neighbors. So while I don't want to speak to anyone individually, I just want us to be super aware of the financial risk that we are creating for some of these smaller agencies.
No, thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. I think that's a very good input, and for us to be cognizant of and to give careful consideration of as we're moving forward, that there are appropriate guardrails there so that we're not unintentionally doing harm, and that these dollars are providing the maximum good for our community. And in the event that it does not look like there's a reality that those dollars can be used the way that they're intended, that there's an opportunity for them to be reallocated elsewhere so they can still be used, because we do have to have them allocated by the end of next year and fully expent by the end of 2026. And so we want to make sure that they're being used and for the maximum good for our community. So it's something for staff to chew on and the commission to chew on further as we're moving forward with this, for sure.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick follow-up, and then I'll release to Commissioner Hood. And I also want to state again that I am not in opposition of any of the recommendations that have been made by this committee. That is not at all my questioning. I am not calling into question the neighbors that put time and effort into what we have here today. Great job. It's not easy. I just want to make sure that staff understands, based on the requirements of the funds from the government, that we're not putting anyone in financial risk. But I support this list.
Thank you. Much appreciated, Commissioner Ramsey. Commissioner Hood.
Yes. I just want to go back on, the use of the swimming pool, and I said the 50,000. If it's used for the swimming pool, then, and they didn't, then we should retract it. But also, from what Vice Mayor Adjournment has said, that, we did give Boys and Girls Club $1 million, and other organizations have given Boys and Girls Club substantial amounts of money. So I'm hesitant on the 50,000 to Boys and Girls Club, because I think that there's other organizations that I saw that wasn't on this list that should have been on the list, that's been around and poking in and trying to do their best to serve our community on the little bits of money that they had, and on just what they could provide for the community. And so I would be hesitant on that 50,000 also.
Thank you, Commissioner Hood. Commissioner St. Clair.
Thanks. I guess on that same general vein of being concerned that we are offering just enough assistance to help someone drowned, I have questions, concerns, I guess, about the grant for Open Gates of Grace. I see that we have recommended a 40% fund for them. But in reading the actual proposal, their project is $500,000. They're asking for $250,000. We're offering them $100,000, and I was not able to see that they have other funding sources lined up, that they have other revenue sources before they complete their project. And I'm having a hard time understanding how they will be able to complete their project with, sorry, I'm not mathy and I don't know what percent funding that is, but minuscule funding out of the entire project. And I don't know if that's doing them a service to offer that or not. So I do have some specific concerns about that particular grant.
Good question. Mr. Manager or Director Wills, can either one of you give, or anyone else on staff that's involved with this process, give insights to your expectations of how we would be proceeding, with this entity that was just mentioned, or any of them, that we are allocating money less than had been requested, and perhaps even less than is needed to get a project or initiative done. What is staff's perspective on how we would be distributing those monies? What do we need first, aside from that agreement, the beneficiary agreement being signed? Like, what assurances will we be expecting or needing before we actually disseminate a single penny of the funding?
So the beneficiary agreement that Director Wills referenced would outline what that criteria is. And as he noted at the beginning of the meeting, once that's signed and we have that surety moving forward, half the funds would be distributed at that point. And then at a later date, the second half would be distributed. And the reason, and then this was a discussion the committee had as well, because the question was, if we do distribute funds and the organization isn't successful, the city's the one on the hook for those dollars. We can try to go after the organization that we awarded it to, but if there's nothing there, there's
Right.
nothing there. So we were cognizant of that discussion of are we setting them up for success or failure, and so that this was our recommendation based on the criteria that was put forward, and we were trying to fund as many as possible. We didn't have like a minimum or a maximum number that the commission had indicated we were looking for, and so the committee took it as let's see how many we can get funded, but then setting structures up within that beneficiary agreement that make sure that those funds are being utilized to the best of their ability.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Do you have something to add, Director Wills?
A little bit, maybe less so specifically to the commissioner's question. I mean, I have a degree of confidence based on the 22 that were ranked, including the Sheldon Park and the Jackson Hill projects. I guess I just start at the bottom. At the Jackson Hill project, at 24,000. I mean, I don't know the rationale for maybe requesting the full 250,000, but I think there's value in the homeowner beautification project request theme that they're seeking dollars for. I think 60,000 can really be a good shot in the arm. Certainly, we've piloted a homeowner beautification grant program in that area in the last 2 to 3 fiscal years. So, although 60,000, yes, I think there are a number of residents through some information that were provided by the association that could do some good work, even if it is 24% of their full request. I would say the same about Sheldon Park. Certainly, as the commission knows, there's a Parks and Rec master plan process that's taking place. I would probably say the same thing with the Nelson and the McLaughlin projects. And then really the rest of them are organizational specific. So if you're Samaritas or Pioneer or West Michigan Symphony or Kids Food Basket, Boys and Girls Club, I mean, I think they have the financial wherewithal organizationally to maybe identify the rest of those remaining dollars. So there would be specific questions and discussions with each of these awardees initially to your question, but really these projects really do stand on their own because they could be neighborhood associations or larger organizations or somewhere in between. So I still have a high degree of confidence even if it's less than 100% funded.
Thank you, Director Wills. Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Wills, I want to thank you for your comments, but my question is, when we talk about the beautification of the Sheldon Park neighborhood, for the improvements made, we know that those $8,000 will be granted or gifted to neighbors to projects that will be completed. When we talk about other services that are receiving, other agencies or organizations that are receiving less than 50% funding, and we speak to them having the wherewithal to locate other grant dollars and then effectively receive them, is there a concern that? No, not is there. My concern is that if we're looking at wrapping up a project and how that impact is, great job. I'm concerned with us helping to start a project that we're not funding completely because being awarded grant dollars, as you now know, is not an easy process. And so while I understand that we could do one-offs all day, and that is not my intention, with projects like the Sheldon Park improvement, we know that money will be used, and that program is not contingent upon more dollars. Some of these efforts are contingent upon more dollars. And so if we're talking about the wherewithal, can you share with my colleagues and I any conversations that may have been had with these agencies that you're not funding? And if there were no conversations had, that's okay. Is there an opportunity to do so?
From myself and there were no direct conversations after the applications were submitted. There were some follow-up questions that were asked. I think I'm completely in alignment with just the sustainability of these projects, and that was top of our minds and certainly the review committee members and the manager's mind as well. So there were some questions that I had asked to the Jackson Hill folks regarding just the number of residents. How can we get that project launched? I really do think that the city can come alongside these applicants, the organizations to support them in that process. So absolutely in the same wavelength on that part of the process, and nor did we go into this wanting to set them up for failure. No, absolutely not.
Absolutely. I have a follow-up, Mr. Mayor. Yes. Mr. Manager, what is the plan moving forward to stand up supports within the city offices for the agencies as they move forward doing this work? Are we going to have a staff member who is going to be dedicated to making sure that the organizations that we're partnering with, air quotes, that we're actually partnering with? Because the work that Director Wills is describing is a very heavy lift. And when we're looking at 22 of those heavy lifts, that's a full day. And I celebrate that. But I want to know that as we talk about funding these agencies at less than a 50%, that there is actually help available, because otherwise we're creating a liability for them, which will end up being a liability for us.
So we haven't gotten into that part of the conversation. There has been with one of the neighborhood associations in particular, we've discussed do we have resources within the city that already exist? Because for example, the Jackson Hill application, what they're looking to do is very similar to what CNS does. So do we already have structures there that could support them in that process? But as it relates to the other institutions, we've not really had that beyond what that application or the agreement would look like in working with Director Wills through that.
Absolutely. Mr. Mayor, moving forward, I'm not going to beat this drum anymore, but I would absolutely be willing to make a motion to fund all of the agencies on this list that are at 50% or more, and then so kindly ask our committee of neighbors to go back to the drawing board and have more conversations to ensure that the dollars that we're going to be sharing with these organizations will not become a fiscal liability.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you.
That certainly is a motion that you may make, and is a motion that the commission can consider.
Well, I don't want to jump the gun
Oh, no,
because
I
I'm
know.
sure there's other stuff that needs to be talked about. I just don't want to continue asking the same questions of Director Wills and the manager.
Completely understood. I'm not trying to push you to make any kind of motion. I'm just saying that is a motion you may make. We're not necessarily at the moment in time for motion making, but something that came to my mind, and thank you so much for raising those important questions and considerations. Something that has come to my mind as we're moving this forward and having someone to help coordinate with these our community partners in these agencies and shepherd this process further forward, because after we make a decision on committing those dollars, it's not over.
Right.
It's just getting underway.
Literally, the work just starts.
Yes.
And I know that our staff is already taxed in the best way possible. They're good at their jobs, and so they do them. But this can't live off the side of someone's desk.
Yes.
There will be real work here.
So then my question, and perhaps this could be considered at a future motion, but I also would like to hear staff's perspective, is can we use any of these ARPA dollars to pay for either a contracted person? We probably don't want to hire a new staff member permanently, since this is probably going to be a temporary based work, but contracting with someone to do this work on our behalf going forward. Can we use some of these ARPA dollars for that pursuit? And if so, I would welcome that, not necessarily taking away from the 1.6 million, but looking at any other remaining ARPA dollars. We would probably have to diminish the commitment, the soft commitment that we made to our park system, but we'd probably have to carve out a little chunk from that to pay for that contract work. But just your thoughts?
Yeah, that is an allowable use within ARPA. Other municipalities have created positions specifically to administer for it. That's not a discussion staff's had.
Okay.
So
something for staff to discuss internally in terms of what capacity we may have, where we might have shortfalls or need to be supplemented, because we don't want to overtax our staff at the same time and undermine the mission that we're trying to accomplish here. Did I see your hand up, Commissioner Gorman?
Oh, no, but I do have a question.
You do have a question?
I mean, it's on.
Oh, we can change topics.
Yeah, it's going to change topics, so if we're done.
Any further thoughts on the topic? Okay. Commissioner.
I did have one on the topic with Commissioner St. Clair's and then the Jackson Hill, because I oversee that area over there. And he talked, if I heard correctly, he talked about the sustainability of, I guess, managing those funds. As indicated when we first talked about having neighborhood associations be part of this grant process, and I stated that some of these associations aren't set up as 501c3s, don't have the capacity or have the structure of operating in that area. And I think that applying in good faith for these dollars and proposing what they're looking to do, we knew this going in, so I think we should give every equal opportunity to these organizations and these neighborhood associations to allow them to operate, but fund them so they will be able to do the things that they need in these communities that's really been disinvested in. And that's the biggest part of it, because in that area there's been very little investments over many years. And we're at a point now where we're having these discussions, bringing the communities together, talking about how we can better serve communities that's underserved. And this is an opportunity to do that. And as for the Commissioner St. Clair's concern with the Open Gates of Grace ministry, I have met several times with this organization. I think their intent is established where they want to do the right thing, but also the relationship going back under our previous city manager, Mr. Peterson. There was an incident where we built that relationship and we reached out and helped Open Gates Ministry due to the COVID-19 situation. And that opened the door to start building the relationship, to building trust with this church, this ministry. Not only have I had conversations with them, but I went out, and then our director Eckhom has went out and viewed the facilities. And seeing the work that they've actually done in the community, and actually what they were doing during the COVID times, were helping homeless people that was out there on the street, and they provided this service and ministry, and was not being given one red cent, not even a penny. They did this out of the kindness of their hearts, the ministry that God has called them to do, and now here's an opportunity where we can also give back and help them continue that vision in that ministry. So again, I feel is an essential need for them to go ahead and get funded and do what they could possibly do to help the homeless and what they can do in the community as well. So that's just my take on that.
Thank you for sharing, Vice Mayor
Yeah.
German. Commissioner Gorman, you had a question on another
Yes.
topic or tangentially related?
Tangentially related. And this is probably a question for Director Wills. Can we hear just, the smallest group in the recommendation is our small businesses. So there's 5 of them that were being recommended. Was their application process through this the same? I guess what I'm looking for is, we know that these are newer businesses, I think, within the city of Muskegon. We know that they're in good financial health now, and that these projects are intended to help them grow their business moving forward. I just want to make sure I have a correct understanding of how the small businesses specifically were encouraged to apply, and the thought process behind these recommendations for them.
All of the evaluation criteria was the same regardless of your neighborhood association, nonprofit, or small business. Certainly you needed to be located or headquartered here in the city. We did look at how long the business has been in existence, certainly since the federal funds were authorized to be used. And as you can see, the 5, which would currently include Unity Beauty and Salon, Tiki Boys, Rake Beer Project, Soulfilled Enterprises, and Servios de Esperanza. They've got good proposals, good ideas, and I think they've all got unique ideas on how they can leverage these dollars. So those 5, along with the other ones, there wasn't any particular qualifiers that were excluded. It was pretty straightforward in the guidelines document whether you were any of those 3 entities.
And I need to be reminded, were there restrictions on which businesses could apply for? Because it's such a small group within the recommended, we have a ton of businesses within the city of Muskegon. I just want to make sure we're all comfortable and clear with, if we hear that other businesses weren't able to apply or didn't apply, just making sure we understand who this was available for.
Absolutely. So within the guidelines document, I was very conscious of providing U.S. Small Business Administration size standards, as well as some other classification codes that small business needs to have to operate. So the expectation was that the applicant would click on those particular links to confirm whether you had assets in the ranging of, say, $1 million to $40 million, or if you had employees, or you met the definition of a small business, I should say, at the federal level. So I couldn't confirm, so you needed to confirm that you did exist as a small business. Certainly we can confirm that as well, but no one was excluded. But we just wanted to make sure the onus was on the applicant to confirm that.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. Commissioner St. Clair.
Just to go back to Vice Mayor German's question, comment, or concern, my referencing Open Gates of Grace was not regarding the work that they do or the work that they've done. I I know that there is absolutely a need for the work that they have done, and I know that they have been doing it. My concern was the level of funding not being helpful. So, just to clear that up.
Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair. Are there any other questions or concerns that should be shared about the recommendations, Vice Mayor German?
Yes, just lost my screen there just a second. If Director Willis could talk about the Sheldon Park Neighborhood Improvement Associations. Got to get back to that screen. Was that approved for the Sheldon Park?
You want me to take that one? Okay. So the Sheldon Park Neighborhood Association application was largely focused on some improvements that they were wanting to see at Sheldon Park itself. A number of the requests are things that the city can easily do on its own, and so we went through and looked at what those requests were, and then that's where that 8,000 came from. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what portion that was, but there were some things. One of the things that came to mind, they asked for another portable restroom. We can do that pretty easily and at a lower cost because we do so many, so that's an easy request to fill. But also because the park itself will be part of our park improvement planning process. Enough P's in there. That some of those other concerns would be addressed at that point as well. So, yeah. but that's why it came in at that 8,000 because they had a pretty good itemized list out of options they were looking for.
Yeah, and the reason why City Manager Cyphers, because I got a chance to visit the Oakview School, which is right down the street from Sheldon Park, and I got a chance to meet with the kids in the classroom, and they talked about the concerns and the safety of that park. And I believe that's in Commissioner Hood's ward there. But who could better tell you about what a park needs than children that play in it all the time? So, and I believe, I don't know if you were hired at that time, but I did send that information to it was Mr. Leo Evans at that time, who was working. And I just wanted to make sure that those needs are addressed, but also, as you stated, the plan with the parks and recs, funding the stuff that we have now, that would be good.
Yep.
And I just want to see those kids happy, but playing in a safe park, and for the most part of it, and they have the funding and the resources to do so. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German. Thank you for the additional context, Manager Cyphers. Says Sheldon Park, even though it might not be fully funded here, we're still anticipating and addressing their needs and their wants for the improvements at that park one way or another.
And can I just add one more thing to that? I forgot this was something that the committee members were adamant to me about in this discussion, was that any money that Sheldon Park would get in this process would be in addition to anything within the park's master plan and not in lieu of.
Absolutely.
So I saw a couple of the committee members look at me. So
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, very, very good emphasis on that. I think that's important, that when we have projects like that in one of their public facilities, that it's not just perceived as or is shuffling of monies around to lessen our investments from the city's general coffers, that these are being used in addition to and supplementing, not replacing. So very, very good emphasis, committee. Ms. Lees, you wanted to add something on that as a committee member?
Yes, and as a committee member, the dialogue that you're having really echoes the dialogue that we had. A couple points I just want to make out is in the list of the 10 questions of how we rated, one of them is sustainability, and it's sustainability around the financials. And every project, I think Jen and Sharonda can attest, we had lengthy discussions around sustainability. So we shared a lot of your concerns, so it's great that you're seeing that and you're having those same concerns. For some of the organizations that you are referring to, and just for example, like the Boys and Girls Club, in funding that, we did, as City Manager had mentioned, had lengthy discussions around that, and looking at was focused pool. But what we looked at from a sustainability standpoint was they have a track record of being able to meet their financial obligations. So we did go back and look, and there's a part of the application that does ask, where does other funding come from? Do they have other funding? And that we did, as a committee, or those who had access to it, we went back and did look at individual finances with it. We felt it wasn't fair to go back individually to those and ask them about that, because then we'd have to go back to everyone that way. So we could only go with the information that we had. Oh, well, we could only really go with the information that was provided to us, and that was kind of the constraints. But, and I know, Todd, you just walked back in, so I'm not sure if I'm putting you on the spot or not. We're talking about some of the larger organizations, and that do have some funding, and how we had looked at them having other ways of funding. I know in the organization here with the Community Foundation, you ran across this quite a bit, so I don't know if you have anything else to add to the dialogue that has been happening on there. So not meaning to put you on the spot, but you've provided such great guidance to us along the way. I just wanted the committee to be aware the things you're bringing up, we had great dialogue around.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the committee worked very hard at doing things in a very objective kind of way, and there are challenges in terms of when you make a grant or a partial award. You know what, there may need to be some follow-up questions, and I get that from a sustainability standpoint, but the recommendations that were awarded were at a level that folks felt it would be helpful to the organization moving forward, and then trusted that with the city staff would be able to work with those organizations. It then becomes the responsibility of that organization, whether they receive full funding or partial funding, to say, well, wait a minute, is this something that we're really going to move forward with? Right? And so even if I received full funding, the dynamics may have changed over the last 60 days, that maybe now institutionally that's what's best for my organization. So I think from a process standpoint, the committee felt very good about where the organizations were, whether they were businesses or not-for-profits or municipalities, being the neighborhood associations, that they would be able to move a portion of that project forward with the dollars that were allocated toward that. Now, the next part of the process is doing the paperwork, understanding what those responsibilities mean, and then them taking the ownership of what that means to accept these funds. But if you start to look at each individual grant as what it could be or what it couldn't be, you'll be managing these dollars before you can even allocate them, and the timeline will be done. I mean, at some point you've got to sort of say, allow the process to take its way. We don't believe, if we felt that there was an award amount that wasn't satisfactory or meaningful enough to move something forward, the committee didn't award it. And so the minimum amount, the amount that was granted, was something that the committee felt would be helpful to that institution. In that, because if it couldn't move it forward, then those dollars were reallocated amongst the 22. And so it felt good that these projects could move forward, recognizing that it may require some additional conversations, a small portion of them, with the city government. Is that helpful? Thank you.
Thanks so much for the additional perspective and context. All right. Commissioners? Thoughts, questions? I mean, we don't necessarily need to go through each application or each recommendation line by line. We've heard some concerns. We've raised some good questions. Some points have been made that need to be given greater consideration as we're moving forward with this process. But are there any, remaining questions or concerns or thoughts that you wish to raise or discuss? Vice Mayor German.
If no one else has, go ahead.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
Okay. There was one more on here, and I'd like to hear from Director Willis how, and maybe a member of the committee, how they came to this conclusion, and that was with the the Michigan Christian School. And given the fact I've got a chance to visit that school and what they're doing for the community in that school as providing a daycare center, and I've talked with the owner of the school because I got a chance to visit, and they've done some great things. They're doing great things, but that's a private institution, correct? And I look at the fact that these are like public dollars or taxpayer dollars coming from the government. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but just give me your explanation on how we. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is an allowable use of the dollars to those type of institutions, and a number of these other institutions are also private. So the discussion, and if any of the committee members want to contribute to this, they can. But the discussion really focused on the need for childcare in the community, and it's one of the challenges that our businesses face. It's challenges that single parents face when trying to figure out how to do that childcare and work balance. Muskegon Christian Schools has a good percentage of their population of the school is scholarship based and from the local neighborhoods. So it does function as a neighborhood hub. Essentially is kind of what we were looking at when we were looking at that recommendation. The other thing that we were looking at with that is this was the last money in scenario, so it makes the project complete and successful, which is why we were recommending and funding it at that level. So it checked a number of the boxes that we thought made it a strong project based on the needs in the community and the populations that the school serves.
And Vice Mayor, I believe Muskegon Christian School has established and has a track record of working with Sheldon Park Neighborhood Association already. So back to their own individual application, I think they have some larger ideas on how to work together collaboratively on both of their projects, so to speak. So I think there's some partnership opportunities long term.
And the other question would be, and I think I've asked this question before. Will this be just for the parents that students attend that school, or is that open to the general public?
As far as who can attend the daycare?
Daycare, yes.
I don't recall off the top. Yeah, it was available to everybody. So yeah,
We have the, excuse me, we have the applicant here. So would you be interested in coming up and sharing any information into your organization as well as how these funds are to be used for the benefit of our community? Come up, introduce yourself and your organization.
Nate Scout. I'm from Muskegon Christian School. I'm the principal at the school. So we started this capital campaign over 2 years ago. When I started, we were really looking for what does our community need, and through all the conversations we had, daycare kept coming up. We do preschool programming at our school currently, so we've done that for about 40 years, have a long history of doing kindergarten readiness type programs, but we don't have space anymore to expand that at all. So that's where this idea came, and it's really a $2.5 million project that we've been working on. The original request was for $250 because that was kind of the last remaining bit we needed. We had a last push on our end as well and exceeded our expectations, which was great. And so I reached out to the committee and I let them know, hey, we're reducing our ask to 175 since we did more on our end, in a good faith effort to open up more of those dollars for other organizations in our community to benefit from. But the school as a whole, I think there's some maybe misconceptions about who we serve. There's no statement that parents have to sign about sending their kids there. We're open to the community. Our child care is open to the community. About 45% of our kids receive free and reduced lunch. About 70% of our kids are on some sort of scholarship to attend the school. So we really try to make it accessible to anyone who wants that in their community. The big push around this project was kindergarten readiness, right? We see a lot of our schools struggling, and whether they stay at kindergarten at Muskegon Christian School, great. Or if they go to another school in our community, they're going to be better prepared for kindergarten. I think we know with COVID, we've seen a lot of stresses on our school system. There's a lot of resources being pushed into those second, third, fourth grade kids who are in kindergarten and first grade when COVID hit. So we can't afford as a community to have kindergartners coming in not ready, because a lot of those resources are already being, put out for those grades that were heavily impacted by COVID. So we really want to make sure our community is prepared for kindergarten. This daycare will have infant care, toddler care, 2 preschools, and 2 pre-kindergartens. And then families are free to, not free, they are able to stay at our school, or they're able to go within our community at the schools there. I think that answered the questions that were raised. Was there any other, Vice Mayor German?
Yes, if I look correctly in your grant, you've raised about $2 million so far, correct?
Yeah.
And you're trying to reach, what is your actual goal?
So it's 2.5 million.
Okay.
We originally needed the 250 to finish that 2.5 million. But with our last push for fundraising, that reduced the need that we had. So to finish out that 2.5 million was the 175,000 that we ended up requesting. So this would make the project fully funded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Really appreciate you sharing those insights into your organization as well as this particular initiative. And thanks for the additional context. All right. Any other questions that need to be raised or thoughts that wish to be shared as we're moving forward? So then, commissioners, there are none. If I'm not seeing any or hearing any, this indicates that the commission is comfortable with moving these recommendations forward. I did not go into this meeting with the expectation that we'd be formally voting on anything tonight or today. It's usually tonight. This afternoon, but this was more of an opportunity for us to discuss and deliberate and perhaps build consensus about how we're moving forward. We could still have this on the next general session agenda with the recommendations, sans the one, without the one, Pioneer Resources, because that's going to have to be handled separately. But we could move this forward to the next general session meeting Monday, actually, because we got a joint work session / general session next Monday, August 7th, if that's the commission's pleasure to have that added to that agenda, and then we formally vote then. Of course, this is a properly noticed meeting. This is a legal open meeting as well. A member of the commission could choose to make a motion today as to how they wish to proceed, but it is at the commission's discretion whether to make a motion today and vote or to give direction to staff to have this added, the recommendations added to our general session meeting for next Monday. Commissioner Ramsey.
I would like to make a motion to approve all of the agencies recommended today that were funded at 50% or higher, and then give direction to staff to have in-person conversations focused on sustainability with those agencies that are funded at 49.99% or lower, and then share those outcomes with us in another special meeting.
For clarification, Commissioner Ramsey, that would exclude Pioneer from your motion?
And exclude Pioneer from my motion because of the conflict.
Thank you, sir.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Ramsey, supported by Commissioner St. Clair. Now is the time for discussion on this motion. As it's your motion, which would you like to proceed?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to acknowledge all the conversation that's been had today and everyone that's in this room. And when we talk about financial liability and risk, I want to make sure that we are here to help these agencies. Like I said from the beginning, Director Wills and Mr. Manager, I support everything that's happening here. I do not have a problem with any of these recommendations. I want to make sure that we now get to have in-person conversations with some of these lower funded agencies so that even if we aren't completing, like in Muskegon Christian Schools case, are there other line items on their budgets that our money will completely cover that relieves the risk of liability? And all that is an individual conversation, in person or via Zoom or whatever that looks like, with however many committee members can be there, or maybe it's something that staff decides looks different, because we don't have to give this money away tomorrow. And then we make sure that our dollars are being put to good use and they have the help from us that they're going to need. Just to say that for the 50th time. I have nothing else.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Commissioner St. Clair, as supporter of the motion,
Thank
you have
you.
anything to ask or add?
I fully concur with Commissioner Ramsey, and just for the people that don't have the numbers right in front of them, we're talking about 5 recommendations that would be funded under the 50%. So not a large cohort. I would like to ask staff to weigh in on the feasibility of this. I know some of these people are really waiting for this money, and I would like to approve as much of this as we can comfortably, as quickly as possible. But I don't know how big of an ask staff feels that would be.
I guess I'd reiterate back to some of my earlier comments just regarding my confidence in those that are funded at less than 50%. Because I just think each of these five are different yes, I mean on their own their application is in the size of the organization it's just not an apples to apples comparison in that regard. And those that certainly are less than 50%, like again, reiterate my comments about Jackson Hill, for example. I mean, or anybody. I mean, you can ask for the full amount, and hopefully that work can be done. But if at the end of the day you fund a little less than that, maybe that's more of a realistic project. And like I said, the city can come alongside they or anybody else under that particular threshold. And I think there's explanations as it relates to the other parks projects, for example, in that Parks and Master Plan piece. So I guess we certainly, deferring to the manager, we can do that particular process, but I would just want to know what kind of threshold or criteria we would be coming back to you with another recommendation from the review committee, for example, which we've kind of already done.
Could I add to that? Or
Mr. Manager?
Okay. I was going to, regarding the committee work on it, I would request that maybe the individual meetings with the organizations be with staff, and then staff report that back to the committees, just because I think it would be hard to get the committee together with the individual institutions' schedules and things of that nature. But we can, and then certainly by Monday, reach out to those five that we're talking about and set up meetings and figure out what that looks like. And then bring that back to the committee, and then a recommendation to the board again.
Commissioner Hood?
Okay, so if we don't have a vote today, this list is the list that's going to stand. So if you didn't make it on this list, then that's it. You just have to make it on.
Well, right
The
now,
reason why I asked that, because I have questions about some on the list and some that didn't make the list. That's why I asked.
so right now the motion is to approve all of the allocations or the recommendations, with the exception of those under 50%, which would be Samaritas that we're looking at
Right, I
funding.
get that.
Okay, but just I'm going to read it out for the public because not everyone is seeing the same threshold or seeing the same spreadsheet as we are. So the ones that would not be in this motion be funded, but would be subject to additional screening, so to speak, and conversation, it would be Samaritas, the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, Kids Food Basket, the Boys and Girls Club of Muskegon Lakeshore, and Open Gates of Grace Ministries. So and then also the Shelton Park Neighborhood Improvement Association and the Jackson Hill Neighborhood Association. So those are the ones that would not be included in the in this motion in terms of funding. Now, yes. So that's the motion on the floor. Commissioner
Just-
Gorman.
I'm with Commissioner Hood in that this is not about what is being recommended. I was not prepared to vote today because I was watching the meeting from last week. I did not think we were going to vote today. So and I very much appreciate the dialogue we had today, but my process was counting on massaging that after this meeting and then voting later. So again, it has nothing to do with the conversation where I'm at now, but I was not ready to vote today.
I will share that I agree. I'm in alignment there. I was not of the expectation to be voting today. I think that it's, for me, I prefer this to be on a regularly scheduled commission meeting and agenda that then also has an opportunity for public comment before we vote on this. And so that'd be my preference of not necessarily voting today, but voting at, say Monday or another regular scheduled commission meeting. Anyone who has not had an opportunity to speak yet? Vice Mayor German?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Johnson. Yes, I concur with Commissioner Gorman and Commissioner Hood. I'm in the same mindset. I just feel that rushing, it is what it seems like to me. Just having more discussion, dialogue, getting a better understanding to whose needs need to be met. I don't agree with all of the organizations or nonprofits on this list due to some issues concerns I addressed earlier today. So, yeah, I'm not in favor of moving forward or entertaining a vote today as well.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German. I see you, Commissioner Ramsey, but I'm
I
going
know.
to give an opportunity for
You're
Commissioner Emery to weigh in if she wishes to do so at this time.
I was ready, and now I've changed my mind, so I would like more dialogue about this.
Commissioner St. Clair, Commissioner Ramsey, I see both of you having follow-up.
Do you mind if I hit it real quick? I want to say thank you to Director Wills because what you're saying is exactly the point that I'm proving. An individual conversation with just staff and these 5 organizations is just about checking those boxes, because when we come back to have more conversation about this on next Tuesday and it takes 4 hours, it's going to be the same question. So I'm just trying to split this work out so that those who we know are there, and then it's a very individualized conversation that is just checking boxes so that you can share that narrative with me. Because if you can tell me that I'm going to give Jen that $50 and she still needs 5, but she's got a plan, Jen gets my $50. So thank you for understanding the process, but it doesn't just apply to one organization. It's those individual conversations so that I know, we know, they know that there's assistance and understanding when it comes to financial risk and liability. I also want to say that I was not prepared to vote today, since that seems to be the gig, and I can absolutely withdraw my motion if that would help people. But also, I'm not going to have this conversation again next week for 4 hours, because this is the list of recommendations. And I feel like we have had time as a bench to reach out and have conversations with the city manager, or where appropriate, to talk about concerns. And while the concerns are valid, next Tuesday it's going to be more of the same conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Commissioner St. Clair, do you have any follow-up?
Just that I'm fine with not voting today.
I withdraw my motion!
I am fine with that. However, if we are not going to vote today, I would like very much to have that conversation, and please air your concerns while we are here in public session. A lot of us took time off of work. I'm here till 4. So let's have this conversation now rather than kicking it out until Monday. If you have concerns about the recommendations, let's speak on those.
Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair. And I'll say, Commissioner Ramsey, I think your motion, the impetus behind it is very, very well intentioned.
Absolutely. And I don't feel disrespected by anyone who is not prepared to vote today. Please know that. I just know that sometimes we kick the can, and this conversation wasn't started as, do we approve of this recommendation? It was about the people who are here. And now we're saying, oh, maybe we don't know about the people that are here. That's a completely different 3-hour separate special meeting.
So the objectives that you're trying to achieve with your motion, I believe work can be done between now and next week. Regardless, staff can give more review, staff can reach out and engage and address some of those questions, concerns before this comes back to us. So perhaps we might be able to give you greater comfort with some of those that are under the 50%.
I would like to amend my motion. I don't even know if I don't want to withdraw my motion to give staff some direction. I think that any of the agencies that are funded at 49.99% or less, staff should reach out and have individual conversations with about their sustainability plan so that they can address those questions that many of us on this bench have and share that with us at the next meeting.
Okay. So, can you just withdraw your motion
I did withdraw my motion.
But I got a second from Commissioner St. Clair to withdraw the original motion. That has been withdrawn. Now, you're looking to make a new motion to give direction to staff to engage in conversations with any of the recommended applicants funded less than 50%.
Yes.
Okay.
Support.
Do we really need legal counsel?
No, if you would like to make a motion directing staff to do that, that's fine. I think staff has understands the desired information that
Yes.
you want to make a decision.
If they don't, I'd be
Well,
concerned.
None of the staff report to me. I
Right.
can sort of.
Well, get him, John. No, I think that that's great. I also believe that staff has an understanding of what the questions we're going to have about those less than, and from the people that are in the audience, they also understand those questions for those particular organizations and why.
Yes. So I don't think a motion is not necessary, but staff understands the direction that the commission would like to take and the consensus. So I think that is understood. So we can save ourselves from that motion and vote then. However, I think Commissioner St. Clair is on point in that if there are questions or concerns about any of these recommendations or those that are not recommended, they need to be brought up right now.
Oh, support.
Like-
I supported the
Like
twist.
certainly they can be discussed. I mean, next week we do have a full meeting in terms of we have a combined work session and general session on Monday, so we're already packing 2 meetings into one on Monday. So we don't necessarily want to dwell too much on this then. Certainly it's going to get its just due, but let's have this conversation now. That's why we had this special meeting for this. I know it can be uncomfortable perhaps. People have got their questions, they got concerns, particularly doing it in front of an audience and on television. However, that's the job that we signed up to do, and we need to do it. So if there are questions, if there are concerns, those need to be raised now. I will just share from my perspective that I am trusting in the process, that I'm trusting in our committee who made those recommendations. They had a system, a scoring system that I think was done fairly, was done in concert with well-established partners in our community who do this day in and day out in terms of grant reviews and grant allocations and funding these types of initiatives. So I'm leaning on their expertise as well. And so I'm generally inclined to defer to that process rather than to upend it and supplant it with perhaps my own personal views. Because, I mean, had I done this individually, I probably would not come about with these same recommendations. Because I have biases as an individual in terms of this organization or that organization or what it appeals to me more than this one. However, it's not about me as an individual. And so I don't want to insert and inject myself and my personal biases into that process. So I'm inclined to defer to the process. Mr. Manager.
I guess I just wanted to speak on the process a little bit more, and I apologize if you had this while I ran to the restroom. But so as we went through the rating process, and we did that independently of each other at home, so we didn't know where the other committee members were coming down because, as I stated at the beginning, we started to have a discussion on each one, and then we realized we were kind of, I don't want to say pushing the conversation one direction or another, but our conversations were being impacted by each other, and we wanted to have that rating independent. And so we went through on our own time at home, rated those, and then loaded those into the system, and we didn't even see where the other committee members were rating a applicant. We saw what the aggregate average scores were, but I couldn't go in and tell you what Sharonda or Nina or any of the other members rated it at. So I do think that the process that came out with how these were rated was very fair, and I think that there were some organizations that maybe that I might have looked at one way through the biased lenses that I have, or that another applicant would have had that rose up or down further in the process because of how everyone as a whole looked at it. We did have a fairly balanced committee. We had 3 men, 3 women, 3 African Americans, 3 Caucasians from all across the city. And it was a very robust conversation that we came to. And I think if any one applicant or organization fell lower on the list, I don't think it had anything necessarily to do with worthiness or anything along those lines. It just had to do with the information that we had in front of us at the time in the application packet and what we were reviewing. So and I think in your directions to us, and I think this was wise, there wasn't a lot of guardrails that were put in place. It was you as the committee figure out the process going forward. And then, you know, when we got these numbers throughout the point totals and we were looking for that break point on how do you determine where that funding level is and things of that nature, you know, and that was through some advice from our partners that were there, from United Way and from the Community Foundation. So I just want to make sure I was kind of clear on that. Like anything that wasn't necessarily funded, doesn't have anything to do with merit. It just has to do with, you know, the 6 of us on those ratings. And I do want to make clear that if, you know, in the instance of the ones that I self-selected out of rating, they were averaged on 5, not 6, so they didn't artificially get lowered. I don't know if I was clear on that before, so. But
Appreciate the additional insights. Do you have something?
And one of the reasons I was saying that, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, is that if there's specific questions about why one got funded or another, I don't necessarily know that it's an easy answer, because there's 6 people who rated these independently based on the application information that we had in front of us. And we had the complete application, including financials, including the narratives that they provided, and including any additional attachments. I believe we also provided that to you all as well, through that Office 365 file. So all of that information was there, and we did have access to that through that conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Vice Mayor German?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You know, given the fact that we do have a reviewing committee, and I've only seen 2 here today, I would definitely like to have heard from the others, if any, are in the chamber, on the approach that was taken and their input as well. And some of the concerns that I did address today, I think was discussed and considered. And so I think at the next meeting, given the fact that we can go back over this and digest this a little bit more, I think that will help me come to a decision on how I want to move forward for this voting.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts that should be shared, or questions raised, or concerns to be conveyed before we move forward? So as it stands, as I'm understanding it right now, commissioners, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I'm understanding this and how we proceed, is that the recommendations that have been received from this committee will be on our next agenda with the recommendation, the recommended motion for approval. It is the commission's discretion to modify that motion, to do a different motion, but that these recommendations from this committee will be on our next agenda, which will be Monday, August 7th, at a regular scheduled commission meeting, and that we'll be voting then on these items. If you have questions for staff or the committee, please get them to them ASAP. We received the packet of applications and recommendations over a week ago. I think we got them a week prior. Yeah, we got a week prior to this meeting being noticed. So we had an extra time, more time than usual, for agendas. Because typically we now get our agendas like a week before the meeting. We got this even sooner than that. So we did have a good amount of time to review and digest. But if you have additional questions or concerns that are born out of this conversation, please contact staff ASAP. So the staff can then route those questions to other committee members or to applicants to get us the insights that we need so that we can make an informed decision as we're voting on these grant allocations. Am I understanding this correctly of what Commission's expectations are for how we're proceeding? Okay, I see nods, heads nodding.
Just
Okay.
one question too.
Vice Mayor German.
Yeah, okay, now, Commissioner Ramsey, declined on this motion, and we're looking at the actual organizations that's, were, considered by the, committees. Now, and you said if, there's some concerns or issues, a motion can be made to basically remove some of those items off of this list? Is that what we're saying?
The commission on Monday has the discretion to, any member of the commission has the discretion to make the recommended motion, a modified version of that motion, a different motion altogether, or choose to make an amendment to the motion throughout the course of the conversation if they wish. And then if there's support for it, that amendment to the motion will be considered, or then the underlying motion will be considered and voted upon.
Yeah, okay. And that's Monday that you're talking about.
That is Monday.
Yeah.
Presently, is the expectation that will be on that agenda. In the meantime, staff's going to give some more. Is going to reach out to the applicants at the under 50%. The Commissioner Ramsey had concerns about engaging with them to better understand their organizational sustainability and other efforts to obtain the resources needed to ensure that their initiatives are going to be successful.
Gotcha.
So hopefully we'll have more insights to be shared with the commission and the community by Monday as well.
Thank you.
So, Commissioner Ramsey, I don't know if you heard that conversation in the hallway, but we're just talking about how our expectations are proceeding and going forward.
Perfect.
So, you good? Okay. I don't know how much you heard in the hallway, so we're proceeding with Monday. The recommendations from the committee will be on our agenda. Will be the commissioner's discretion to make it the motion that it wishes on Monday. In the meantime, staff understands that they're going to be engaging those applicants that the recommendations have been less than 50% to get better insights and answers to your questions.
I motioned that.
You support that, okay. So we've got consensus on how we're moving forward. Then we can call this a wrap. But before we adjourn, there's public comment. So we're going to entertain public comment right now. I should have said at the very beginning that there are public comment forms at the back of the form that I encourage you to fill out. There's not necessarily time for that. So if there is anyone wishing to give public comment, I will acknowledge you to come to the podium. I'll ask you to give your name and the organization that you represent. Excuse me. And you will have up to 3 minutes to provide remarks. On Monday, there will be time for public comment at the beginning of the meeting on any agenda items. So you're welcome to avail yourself of that opportunity for public comment. You're welcome to give public comment right now. This is regulated by the OMA, and we welcome public comment also. Welcome.
How you doing, Mr. Mayor and City Manager, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council Commission? My name is Ronald Jenkins with the Lake Hawks in Flight Foundation. For those that don't know, especially committee, that we did apply for the grant as well. I normally don't say anything. I normally don't get up and talk and do all that stuff. I try to do things on the side and just allow others to do those things. But I am very concerned as I saw the list and I'm listening to some of the comments with our foundation. I mean, we've been in operation for over 13 plus years. And the things that we've been doing in the community to affect directly our youth and our people and on a higher scale than I think the committee even understands or the committee knows. And a lot of the things, a lot of the people that I saw on there that received this grant money that may not needed it to that full extent are people that call the Lake Hawks in Flight Foundation or the Lake Hawks basketball organization, our young men, to come and help them. And we don't receive money from them. But our young men are in the community actually making a difference under the organizations that receive the grant money. And this has been going on for several years that I've actually came and on different occasions to come, or members of my staff have come and asked for support and on this level so that we can be sustainable and we can continue to do the things that we do in the community. So I am saddened that the Lake Hawks in Flight Foundation did not have an opportunity to receive any funding. From the 250 to 175, even down to 50 or to 25,000. So I am very concerned about that as a minority owner that have been in the trenches, been in the grounds running hard, Mr. City Manager, running hard. And this hurts my heart for real that that this happened. And I know, like you say, the committee may not know anything about the Lake Hawks Flight Foundation, but not to have that consideration. Then I listened to one that said, well, I was able to have a conversation to go back and say, well, we didn't need the whole 250. We just said we'll take the 175. Well, my question is, how did he know that he's going to actually receive it? To be able to go back to the committee members to say that he's not going to need, or they're not going to need the full amount. That to me didn't sit well with me listening, and maybe I just got a misunderstanding. But I know I didn't receive a call to be able to talk to any committee member about whether to receive or not to receive any money. And for them to know that they was receiving or possibly receiving the money, to be able to go to a committee members and say we don't need all of it. As a minority owner, again, I normally don't say very much, but that doesn't sit well with me. So again, hopefully in the future, as we continue to move forward and you guys continue to see, because I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing, regardless of the fact. I sacrifice for myself, I sacrifice for my family, I sacrifice for me, period, to make a difference in the lives of our youth. This gun violence and all these things that's happening, that's what the Lake Hawks in Flight is about. Keeping our young people in a position to live and to have success. So that's my 3 minutes, and I wanted to make sure that I stood up and said something finally, because if I don't say anything else, nobody else will. So that's my point. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Appreciate you joining us this evening, or afternoon. Yes, welcome. Provide your name and organization.
Rodney Savage with Kids Food Basket.
Good to see you, Mr. Savage.
It's good to see you, Mayor, Commissioners, and city staff. Thank you all so much for your diligence in this. It can't be easy. We appreciate it so much. Kids Food Basket is one of the organizations that are below that 49.9. Our COO is here today and was wondering if today would be a good time to sit and talk with the staff while she's here today, or it was a time to set up before Monday, but she's here today with all of our financials and could answer all those questions if she has that opportunity. So,
thank you, Mr. Savage, and I think if staff has the capacity, I think they would be very interested in availing themselves of the opportunity to speak with you on some of the questions that have been raised this afternoon. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Jacobs.
I'd like to comment on what Mr. Jenkins said, and I appreciate his perspective. The committee did not individually receive contact with any individual applicant. That applicant that was identified reached out to the city staff, to Pete, and they modified their application. There was no communication going on between committee members or any of these applicants. Our conversations took place in that room. And so again, it may be worth circling back and making sure that Mr. Jenkins understands that was communication that took place from the applicant directly with the city staff, and then that was relayed in a meeting. We did not seek that out. That was brought to the group. And so I just want to make sure that you understand that the committee worked very hard to remain objective and to have the conversations taking place within that process.
Thank you. That is good to know. Welcome. Please introduce yourself and any organization you may or may not represent, and you have 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I'm here on behalf of Forest Tax and Accounting. Thank you all so much for your time and consideration. And I don't believe that any of us really know what any other of us asked for with the application, but I find it a little disheartening, and I only know what you've all talked about today, that an organization, and I'm only using it as an example, like Boys and Girls Club, they have huge capital campaigns. Small businesses in this community don't. We don't have that. And I fully support Commissioner Ramsey, what you were saying about, so you're only getting maybe a quarter of what you were asking for, but then what? And so it's kind of that plan B, that backup plan. What are people looking at? And so I think it's really important thing to point out. One of the things that was actually on our application was to create a larger space within Forest Tax and Accounting to be able to have classes and have people in the community come in and learn about financial responsibility, fiscal responsibility, how to be a single mom, a single dad, how to save for college, things like that. But again, I really appreciate everyone's time, and I really look forward to where this goes, because I think it's a great thing for our entire city, and I'm just excited. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining us this afternoon, Jennifer. Welcome. Please provide your name and your organization.
Deb Wells, and I manage Jefferson Towers, also known as Muskegon Retirement Apartments. I'm going to admit that when that Excel went, my eyes aren't good enough. I don't think we got any funding. We were around number 25. So I'm also disappointed, and I hear a lot about the kids programs, and I want to make sure that this city understands we are the only building in this town that services low-income people with an average of $400 rent that includes all their utilities and their cable TV. Nobody else does that. And we have never gotten funding from the city, never asked for funding. We're self-funded as much as we can, but built in 1969, our windows are in bad shape. And our understanding was this was about weatherization and improvements in the home. And we have 149 separate homes in our building. And that's what we are, a community of 149 people with the windows are breaking down. And before COVID, we had come and saved the money on our low budget for $250,000. And after COVID, that cost went to $500,000. And that's why we needed the funding. And we have since done some more raising. And I'm very disappointed. I really don't feel this community knows Jefferson Towers and knows what we're there doing. And we don't have capital funding, and we don't have donors, and we don't charge our people. We make our budget on a line item, and we've done really well. And I've been there for 14 years. We've always paid our bills, but we don't have the kind of money, and this was going to help us put those new windows in. And as far as not getting all of it, if I have to start from floor 11 and stop at floor 5 and wait for 10 more years to finish it, that's what we have to do. So we do have backup plans. DTE was willing to contribute a little bit of funding. I don't know if it's too late at this point, but I'm just disappointed. We are an organization that has never gotten any help, and that's what's the first time, and I guess we'll keep looking. But there are the older generation that makes $1,200 a month, doesn't qualify for the extra low-income funding that you might think we get. We don't. They don't get that. This is the only place they're going to pay $400 rent. You're not going to touch that anywhere else in Muskegon and be able to survive. So thanks for the consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Appreciate you joining this afternoon. Want to direct you to the Weatherization Assistant Program, and particularly the $3.5 billion that the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act has allocated. So there's a lot of resources that have recently become available at the federal level. And I don't know if we have anyone in staff that's well versed in that program. I know I've shared some resources with some department heads over the time, over the past few months about that and getting that information out. So hopefully we can find someone that can circle back with you to connect you with those additional opportunities. So even if you may not get funded through this program, that we can connect you to other resources to support your mission. So thank you for what you are doing for our community. Welcome. You have up to 3 minutes to write remarks, and if you could just share your name and the organization that you represent.
Okay. My name is Lakeisha Harris. I am the owner of Soulfield Catering, Soulfield Enterprises, known as the Turkey Knuckle Queen. So that's who I am. For me, I just want to openly say thank you. So many people can look at the negative, and this worked favorably for a minority-owned, female-owned business. We were not being heard at Chase Bank. We were not being seen at PNC. So our peers and our commissioners standing and saying, hey, we believe in what Muskegon produces works. So many people may not have received all of what they were looking for. But for someone like me, I never would have had an opportunity if it were not for the special committees and the insight that you all give. So if no one says thank you for your work, if no one says we appreciate you, this is what we elect you for. This is why we vote. This is why we stand in lines and we serve our community. And so the greater question that I have now is that now that we are revisiting this for those persons, I want to gain a greater understanding of the revisiting is for those persons that are less than the 50% mark or for all considered persons. Because if we look at it from a different viewpoint, then a person like me will then disqualify again. So I just want clarity on what we're revisiting so that I don't have a hope in a process that worked for the benefit of the people, that worked for brown and black people, because we did not have this opportunity before. And so I thank you for that, but I just want clarity on that point as to know the revisiting of this now is mindful of what? What are we saying in revisiting this?
Thank you. Thank you, Chef Harris. That's a good question. My understanding from typically we don't have back and forth Q&A at this time. It's time just to hear from people and understand your perspective. But it's my understanding that the question is or the concern is with regard to allocations under the 50% requested, is what I understand it, not under the 50% of the total project. But I think that's what you're getting at. But I also think that it's an important factor to be considered. But right now, the committee's recommendations that have been received are what's going to be on the agenda for Monday for consideration and vote. Welcome up. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks. If you would please provide your name and your organization.
Hi, I'm Renee Starr, the president of Open Gates of Grace Ministries, and we were brought to light by the commission, and I did want to just address a couple things because you're absolutely right. Our project, based upon the things that we need, is about a $500,000 project. However, we are licensed brokers and builders for over 30 years. And so when you asked where is the rest of that money's coming from, it's coming from us through our own work and through our own sweat equity. As you may have known, I don't know if Vice Mayor Adjournment knew, but during COVID, we literally plugged in $100,000 cash, no loans, no mortgages, and all of that of our own finances to help the homeless. And I heard the Jefferson Towers lady say there's no one in Muskegon that does $400 a month with all utilities included. Welcome. We're two of a kind. So we do as well. And so we believe in helping the community, taking our own funds from our other businesses, because as I noted, we're real estate brokers and builders, and we own a church where we do ministry, and we just decided to bring that ministry through. I'm sure you guys have seen my mom who started it, and we perfected it for her and brought the ministry to a higher level where we can serve more people and give affordable housing. I'm a little disappointed that we're only getting 100,000, and I understand that, but I'm more than happy to speak to any of you guys regarding our people, because I know we have a very special group of people. We take the lowest of where no one else, where everyone kicks them out and they're living on the street, we bring them in and let them stay with us and give them an opportunity. Some of them take it, and nearly 98% of everyone who's ever left our ministry have all asked to come back. They all call me mama. I'm in my 50s, so I got 35-year-old white men. They all, and black men. They, mama, I want to come home, and they're waiting to come back home. I just received a call yesterday from Health West saying, Ms. Starr, when are you opening your ministry back up? Every month, even though that ministry had been shut down for nearly a year, I've still received calls from Health West and the Mission and other organizations. So we're going to move forward, and I am more than happy. If you have any personal questions for me, we can do ours. We have the monies. We had the money during COVID to do that. And we have the money to make sure that that happens. We appreciate what you gave us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Starr. Next up, welcome.
So based on the last couple of hours of discussion, I've kept making all these changes in what I was going to say, but
you just share your name and welcome from the NIMS neighborhood.
Right. So my name's Donna Pennington, 1418 Lakeshore Drive in Muskegon, and I'm speaking here on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club of Muskegon Lake and the Neal Fitness Center, which is a part of this discussion too, I believe. And I want to thank those who served on the committee and all the hard work that they did. It sounds like an excellent process. And I always have to thank Gary Neal, even though he isn't here, because in spite of what may be believed about this funding base that we have for our facility, we were this close to the wrecking ball. And that's the honest truth. And thank goodness that didn't happen. So we are still short of our fundraising goal in spite of your generous donation for the phase 2, which includes the pool and the gymnasium and the parking lot. So I'm here to kind of thank you and hope you don't take away the $50,000 that has been recommended, and ask that you consider increasing it to what we asked for, which was $250,000. We think will impact a broad population of youth, adults, seniors, and persons with disabilities, and we hope we'll be serving 1,000 adults a day in and out the door of the fitness center. So these funds are from the ARPA, I guess it is, related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And early on in the pandemic, it became clear that the rates of severe illness and death were higher in some communities, including Muskegon. And Dr. Janae Caldoun, the health director, executive director of the state at the time, pointed out that it was the social determinants of health that impacted some communities more than others. Race, ethnicity, income, housing, employment, and access to health care were all important and could have a negative impact on one's health. And then the conditions that often complicated one's response to COVID were heart disease, blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, and asthma. And what are the two things that impact all of those conditions are diet and exercise. And we do say that we have a food desert in Muskegon, and we don't want to have a fitness desert. So I'm asking that you support our request at the level that we requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pennington. Appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Welcome, and provide your name and the organization that you are representing or speaking on behalf of.
I'm Virginia Taylor, and I'm first going to speak on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club. And I want to thank the committee and the commissioners for considering our project. And we're grateful that being considered at the $50,000 level, recognizing the $1 million that was given for the renovations of the entire clubhouse. At that point, we did not include the pool in the gymnasium, partly because, again, we had we thought the pool was going to be enough, and we knew that was a big ask for our community. We had some professionals come and they evaluate how much they think that an organization can raise on a capital fund, and if we included the pool and the gymnasium and the parking lot, it would put us well above what they thought an organization could raise. So we took those off of the project. Then COVID happened, and the cost of materials increased by exponentially. It doubled, and so we continued, then had to reimagine our scope, take additional things off of the budget, and then all the while during COVID and during this time doing a capital campaign. During this time, we also had the mission that completed a capital campaign. There's a number of competing capital campaigns that happened during this time. So while it's wonderful to hear everyone say, hey, we have a lot of capacity, we have a lot of people that are willing to fund, frankly, it feels like the community is a lot tapped out, and we're just on the very, very end of what we can do with this capital campaign. And the pool is so important. I don't know if you all know that last year when we were open with the pool, it's broken tiles, kids' feet were getting cut. In that pool, every day of the week in the afternoon, we have a group of kids. We bring kids from East Muskegon over, so Orchard View, all of those. We also bring all the kids from Muskegon Public Schools, and every day there are kids that were afraid of, terrified of the water, and they're in the water, they're learning to swim, they're enjoying the water. And without this pool, our kids don't have access to the water. They're going to continue to be afraid, and this money is very needed. Now, to address the 50% capacity thing, this budget is broken up into individual things. I mean, right down from the tile to fixing the edges, everything. So this money can be expended, and it would be expended before the end of the year, and being able to get the things that are open. We really appreciate your thoughtfulness and your consideration, because that pool really is serving the underserved. The other population that is there every morning are our seniors. There's a lot of people that cannot exercise because of their inability with their joints to be able to do regular exercise. The pool is the only place that they can actually do physical fitness. So please consider that.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining this afternoon. Welcome, welcome. If you could provide your name and the organization that you're speaking on behalf of or an advocacy for.
Sure. Laura Swenson, 1364 9th Street. Actually, I'm here on the Fitness Center, Club 188, Central United Methodist Elevator. And I wanted to thank Vice Mayor Adjournment. I remember the city council meeting where he pushed for additional funds, and I have to say that the lukewarm response from the rest of the commission, given the response that we've seen and the demand, that I hope that obviously the 1.6 is only going to fund so much, but thank you for that, pushing for those additional funds. I can't say enough about how important the fitness center is and getting that project done, and how many people have come to the table to make that happen. And yes, you did make a sizable $1 million. That is significant. But the city has resources. Look at the building that we've had and the investment. And if we can't see this project come through, and I am sad to say that there were officials with the city who said the best thing that could happen with the highest, best use of that facility would be to tear it down and build private development condos. So I think we really need to make that commitment and make it happen. And finally, Club 188, I just can't say enough on what those, and I'm pleased that you recognize that. Central United Methodist has a fine building. It needs handicapped access, and that we don't have enough of that in our downtown area. So hopefully that consideration. But thank you all for what you've done and for seeing this through.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining this afternoon.
I'm Virginia Taylor, and I'd like to speak on behalf of the application for the Nelson Neighborhood Association.
I'm sorry, we only allow one individual
Okay.
per public comment time.
Okay, even if it's a different organization?
Yeah, even if it's a different organization, yeah.
All right, thank you.
One person per 3 minutes.
Okay.
However, you are certainly welcome back at our Monday meeting to give public comment at the beginning of the commission meeting at that time. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to give public comment at this time? Yes, sir. If you please provide your name and the organization that you're speaking on behalf of.
I'm Andy Belo. The organization is West Michigan Symphony, and I'm also a resident of Nelson Neighborhood, 1642 Jefferson Street. I don't need the full 3 minutes. I just wanted to say that I've been fundraising for nonprofit organizations, specifically orchestras, for 25 years. And for an organization like the City of Muskegon to come in and do a sort of a one-off grant-making process like this is a major undertaking. And I wanted to just commend the process that you've done here. I think we're in line for partial funding, but I realize you still have to vote. So this is not about that, but it's more just about, I've watched a lot of both state and federal organizations do grant making before, and you did this right. The city staff has done an excellent job, and I think that the two consultants you brought in, Christine and Todd, both really know what they're doing as well. So I just want to commend the process, and regardless of what happens, thank you all for giving this so much due diligence. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for joining this afternoon, Mr. Belo. Welcome.
Hi.
You have 3 minutes to provide your remarks. Please share your
It'll
name
be
and
less,
organization.
promise. I'm Candy Gibson with Fresh Coast Alliance, and I also bought my first home in the McLaughlin neighborhood in April. And I moved.
Congratulations and welcome to Muskegon.
Thank you. I moved here for a job at Fresh Coast, and we offer the highest level of addiction care in Muskegon County, reaching men and women coming out of prison and men and women coming out of addiction and substance use disorder. We did not receive funding, or we're not currently. We were reviewed, but I just want to thank you for being transparent with the sheet, seeing our score, knowing what we need to maybe improve on in the future. It helps, and it's clear to me that it was provided in the packet in the agenda items, so I could see it, read through it, look at the numbers, and see maybe where I can push forward in the future. And thank you. I've met many of you in the wild, and it's nice to be at a meeting and see you doing the work behind the desk, because I know you care for this city, and I'm growing my care for this city. And so I just want to thank you. It's a lot of work. That's a lot of applications. It was a lot to fill out. I can't imagine going through 60 of them. And then grading almost 35 of them, 40 of them. Thank you for the time that you put into this and the care. And hopefully in the future we have more opportunities like this.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining this evening, and more importantly, thank you for choosing to grow with Muskegon and making your community better. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to give public comment at this time? So, I do want to. We have to give opportunity for phone-in comments as well. So, has that been scrolling for a minute? The phone number?
Oh, yeah.
Do we have any phone call-ins right now?
We do not.
Do not? Okay. So I do just want to share, my considerable appreciation and gratitude for all of the applicants for this funding. That was a lot of work just to apply and submit those applications. But moreover, I'm incredibly grateful for the work that each of the applicants are doing in our community day in and day out. Please do not take the committee's recommendation or lack of recommendation for funding you or fully funding you as any kind of a reflection of the merit of your organization. It does not diminish the work you're doing. It does not indicate that your organization is less than or less well-deserving. Please, please, please know that you are an important part of our community, and we are incredibly grateful for the work that you do. Even if you ultimately do not get fully funded or get any funding from this process, which remains to be seen next week, there may be other opportunities that we can partner and work together and connect you to other opportunities and other resources so that we can support your mission and work collaboratively together to cultivate that community that we so cherish. So again, I just want to say thank you for being part of this process, regardless of the outcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you so much to our staff. Thank you so much to the members of that committee for volunteering considerable amount of time and effort and mental capacity into reviewing and scoring those applications. So just thank you all around. It is much appreciated. With that said,
Motion to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Ramsey, supported by Commissioner St. Clair. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you. Take care and be well.